This kind of shift raises a number of important questions, probably the most fundamental of which is, is virtual learning effective? Or are we sacrificing quality to some extent by moving training from the classroom to some form of technology-based delivery? Over the last several decades, literally thousands of studies have examined this question, looking across many different types of technology, as well as different types of learners and learning content. The typical study that you'd see in this area would take a particular learning program or training program and would offer presumably comparable forms of it, one usually in person, face-to-face, and another through some form of technology. And then at the end, what we would do is compare outcomes across learners in terms of their attitudes, in terms of their learning gain, skill gain, et cetera, to see how the technology-based form of the program compared to the more traditional form. And what meta-analyses of these studies have consistently revealed is that all else equal, learning outcomes tend to be equivalent in the same course delivered through technology as delivered through more traditional classroom in-person instruction. So on the one hand, that's maybe reassuring to know that in general, we tend to find that e-learning, virtual learning really doesn't lead to detrimental kind of learning outcomes, which is important because a lot of surveys show that there's still, among the general public, a perception that technology-based learning tends to be, in general, lower quality learning than more traditional in-person instruction. And the evidence doesn't really bear that out. That being said, it's important to call attention to this all else equal statement that I put in that conclusion. What you find if you look at these studies that, again, try to compare technology-based and more traditional learning, is that it's really difficult to create equivalent versions of a particular training program that's offered through different delivery media. What you often find is that by offering the content or through these different mediums, you often end up with other types of differences that seep in. For example, if a program is delivered through technology, learners may have more opportunity to go back and review content, or even just to spend more time in learning. Or in the classroom, it may be possible to more actively engage learners, maybe with interacting with the content or interacting with peers or even the instructors. So you have to be really careful when looking at these studies to really assess, is the instruction that's being offered equivalent across these different media? But when these studies have been able to really kind of control for these differences, what you find is that there's really nothing uniquely advantageous to any particular delivery medium. Or as educational psychologist Richard Clark once stated, media only deliver instruction, but do not influence learning. Thus, the question is not really whether virtual learning should be used, but really when it should be used. And that requires consideration of whether the technology can deliver the desired instructional experience. In other words, we should be really thinking about what are the learning objectives or goals of a particular program. What is the type of instructional experience that we need to create for people to actually achieve those goals? And then we should look at, are we able to appropriately deliver that instructional experience through some form of technology? If the answer is yes, then it's likely that e-learning will be effective. If the answer is no, then we really should be thinking about, again, do we pause this program or think about other ways to deliver it?